Experience. Guys, our application is now almost complete. We are able to add the expense with the help of this expense form, which we can expand on the click of the add expense button, and we can close it on the click of cancel or the submission of the form. We are able to add the expense data entered by the user into this expense list, and we are able to filter it with the by the years. So everything is working fine. There is just one last thing that I want to add to this application, and that is I want to add uh, charts like this. So what is this basically? It is basically for a particular year, for example, 2023, it is showing the expenditure in the by months with the help of some graph. So if I go to 2024, I can see that $10 I spent in the month of September. So it is taking the percentage of the out of the total expenditure and showing it in the form of this color, dark purple color. So I want to create a chart like this, and this is the last thing that we want to add to this our application to give it the final shape. How we will do this, we will see now. Um so I will begin by basically going to my. See, we can clearly see that uh, this lies between the expense filter and between the expenses list. So I need to go to my expenses component, and I should add a new component here. Uh, but before I add it, I should have that component. So let us create a component. Let us call it expenses chart. Let's call it expenses chart.js. I will import the typical React import statement, and then I can create this function expenses chart equals to this, and I will export it. Export default expenses chart. And now inside this, let me just first of all let me just import it inside the expenses component, and let me plug it in here. So I will import expenses chart from dot slash expenses chart, and I will simply put it between the expenses filter and the uh, expenses list. Now, obviously, this expenses chart, if I want to create a graph like this, I should have the data of the months. Okay, the expenses made in every month. So for that purpose, what I need to do is I need to pass the filtered expenses that I'm getting here, and that would be the data for my chart. So I can say that I can create a prop called chart data, and to it I can pass the filtered expenses. Okay, so this is done. Now in my expense chart, I will receive the this filtered expenses with the help of chart data prop. If I right now just I will just log this. Let us see what are we getting. Are we getting the filtered expenses or not? Sorry, prop dot chart data. Okay, so I will go to my application. So this is the final version. The actual version, the code on which we're working is this one. So I will just inspect and I will see whether I'm getting the, yeah, I'm getting an array of two items, book and laptop. So, and this is coming from the expenses chart.js line number 4. So that means I'm getting this data with the help of props. Now what I need to do is I need to do something here. I need to create, okay, let us do one thing. Let us create a separate folder for this chart itself. And we will club that here inside this expenses chart component. So I will create a new folder. Let us call it chart. And this chart will basically have a file, let us call it chart.js. Typical import, React import, chart is equals to, and then we will export it, export default chart. Done. Now I can import it in the expenses chart. I can say import chart from dot slash chart slash chart. I have my chart here. Now I can render it. I can render the chart. So I will just say return a div, and inside the div I can return the chart component. Okay. Now this chart, okay, the chart that I am using here again, this should have this data. Okay. So let us pass this data to the chart component. Uh, let us call it expenses. Let me just store it here. So basically what I'm doing, I created a component called expense chart inside my uh, expenses component. I kept it between the expenses list and the expenses filter. I passed the filtered expenses data to the expense chart component, and there I'm having this chart component, which is for which I have created a separate folder where I will write the logic for this chart thing. And then I have what I've done, I have basically passed out the expenses uh, to that component. Let us call it chart expenses for better understanding. Let's call it chart expenses. The chart expenses equals to top dot chart data. So I must get the expenses for this chart inside the chart component. Let us do that here. I will just props, and for now I'll just log it here. Let us log. Let us see whether we are getting the chart expenses or not. Chart expenses. Okay, let us see. Okay, in chart.js again I'm getting the two items. So this is perfectly fine, no issues. Now what I can do is here, this is my chart component. Okay, so this here basically I'm creating something like this expenses. This div that I had in the expenses chart, that is this light pink color, and then I have this another div. Inside this, I will be, using same basically each of this for each of this line, this bar that you're saying. Okay, I will create a new component. Let us, I can call it chart bar, and I will, make it a reusable component. I will render it again and again, so I can basically make use of what you can say map function here again. So what I want to do is, what I'm thinking that I can create a new component, let us say chart bar. Let us call it chart bar. And what is this chart bar doing? This chart bar is basically representing the individual bars here. One for January, one for February, one for March, and so on. Right? Whereas this chart is representing this entire block. Okay. So now, can you see that all these bars are identical? Just this fill height will change, the color with which I'm filling them will change, and the month name will change. So we need to configure this as per that logic. But for now, let us just write the typical import React statement, and let us create this function chart bar. Now I will pass on this props. Uh, I will come to chart bar. Okay, I will come to chart bar, but before that, let me just export this and put it in the export default chart bar. I'm exporting it from this component, and I'm importing it here in the chart. Now here I will render it again and again because I'm having the chart expenses. Now I want to render this. Okay, so I can say that I'm getting the expenses now. Out of the expenses, I need. Okay, let us do one thing. Um, Let us create another constant chart data, because we can clearly see that the final thing that I'm having, na, that final thing will have, um, what do we say? It will have a month. So there should be an array of objects where I'm having the months. Let us write expense months. Let us call it 10, and then expense value or amount. You can call it anything. Initially, its value will be 0, and then we will basically iterate through array, this array, we will iterate through this, and we will try to increase the value of the expense through for loop. So we will do that, but before that, let us complete this array. So I will need 12 such objects, one for each month, and initial expense value would be 0, because I'm assuming that initial, obviously, okay, we should take the 0, and only if when we find any expense for a particular month, we should add it to this. We should increase the expense value. So I got 6 months. Let me repeat it again. June, then July, August, September, October, November, and December. So I got my chart data, which I created right now. Now what I want to do is I just want to take into account the expense value for uh, each of this object, and for that I can make use of the chart expenses that I'm receiving from the expense chart component. Now this is nothing but this is your this object. So it is having a field called date. So I can make use of date. And okay, let us do one thing. The video is getting a little longer. Okay, we will apply this logic in the next video, so that we have a series of short videos. So what basically we will do in the next video, in the next video, what I will try to do is, see, from the expenses chart, I'm getting this data. Okay, what is the data? We can see it in the console, this data that I'm getting. So I will basically try to fetch the month from this data, because I know that year is common, because I've already filtered it by year. So I will get the month from the date by get month method. With the help of that, I can then get this price, and I will add to the expense value. Basically, I will add it to the uh, this expense value if that month is having any uh, what we say expenditure. And then at the end of that for loop, I will do this via for loop, and once that for loop ends, I will have the updated chart data, which will take into account on all the expenses made for each and every month. And then we will pass that data to the chart bar for each of these months. And then um, how we will configure this, all we will see all this in the next video. Right now, just try to digest this much, and then we will complete the remaining part in the next video. Thank you.